Peter Franklin, the Gabby Cabby. Good morning, Peter, in New York.
Good morning, live from the beautiful streets of New York City.
The number one conversation, CNN personalities saying Trump has a mental problem and should be impeached. What do you think?
It's pretty rough. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who don't like the guy and all that, but I think for most grown-ups, our age, your age, my age, your listening audience, you can't really think of a time in politics that got as bad as this. I mean, the things that they're saying about the guy. So, I think it's kind of upsetting. It really is. And I'm not a particular Trump fan. I don't think he's particularly good in a lot of different ways. I think he's guided by his children, who I really don't like. There's something about them that's kind of sleazy. Yeah. But, the conversation is I get people in the cab that, like, venom is dripping. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It really is. The stories they're telling are that the people close to the president, the White House, are fearful that he's beginning to lose it mentally. And who's leaking that stuff, or are they just making that up?
I think they're making it up. They're leaking that stuff, and also it's kind of the nature of the kind of guy that he is. I mean, you may not admire the fact that he just says what he feels like saying. I'd like to work for the guy. I'd like to work for him, so every once in a while I could say, hey, Donnie, I don't think you ought to say that. I don't think you ought to do that. But he just likes to shoot off his mouth, which is, I don't know, could you say it's part of his charm?
I guess, depending on how you look at it, I guess that could be charm.
Or what turns you.
In all these years that Rudy Giuliani worked so hard to clean up Times Square, and now Pornhub, the porn website Pornhub, has opened up a retail store in New York City. Is it in Times Square?
Yeah, it really. Well, it's not exactly in Times Square, but it's in Midtown Manhattan.
Yeah.
And it's a sign of the times with de Blasio, because this guy is terrible. And what's scary about him is that he's talking about running for president, and Cuomo's talking about running for president. So I guess if we've had troubles with the Hillary-Trump fight, we're going to really have a great fight when these two guys go. De Blasio's very bad. He really is. The city is going apart. I mean, not going completely apart, but it's slipping back. It really is.
Maybe Matt Lauer has an account there.
Yeah, well,
I stole your joke. I stole your joke, Peter. I read it right off the sheet here. I stole it from you.
That's all right. You were entitled to it.
Okay, thanks. What else? I find this to be interesting, and the way this will be thought of in New York City versus up here is completely different. And we're talking about concealed carry permits. What's your take on all of it?
All right, most people don't realize it. It's actually a New York State law. It's called the Sullivan Act. I think it was actually put into effect something like in 1938. About, walking around with a gun. You really can't do it. I'm talking about a pistol.
Yeah.
And, and it used to be in the old days, anybody who wanted a license could kind of get one. But now, of course, it's really tough. It's just about impossible to get a license to carry a gun. But what do you do about people who are traveling into New York City as tourists, and they already have a gun, and they bring it with them? Because, of course, they've heard how terrible, scary, and dangerous we are.
Right.
So that's what this whole controversy is about. There's certain people who want to make it so if you guys come down here for the day, you're going to bring your guns with you. And there's other people who say, what, are you crazy? The people who are living here can't have guns. We certainly don't want tourists going around.
Yeah.
But like anything else, listen, I got to make a buck somehow. So if that becomes the case, I'll just start selling ammunition from the back of the cab.
Yeah, that would be a great place. You've got bullets here. Yeah. Got your bullets here.
That was a joke, by the way.
I like that. How about, what is your take on, and are people in New York, because it would be a target, are people in New York at all concerned about the stories that say Kim Jong-un and North Korea now have a missile that could actually reach New York City?
Well, I got to tell you something. I think a lot of people are thinking that we're all sitting and watching a science fiction movie, and you don't know whether or not this, is how it's going to end. And, of course, the idea of having a nuclear war is like, oh, that's impossible. That's just like something. So people aren't walking around shivering and shaking, but people are walking around talking about it. And certainly after this missile, that he just fired, where they made a big point about the fact that it could have hit New York on a different trajectory, has people concerned about it. And my suggestion is, North Korea does have a representative in New York City, And I have a picture of him on the website. I can't even remember how to pronounce his name. But I suggest we all keep an eye on him, because if we see him packing his bags to go away for the weekend,
yeah,
we ought to all follow him.
My guess is, though, Kim Jong-un would not tell him. They'd be like, well, casually. That's just casualties of war.
The war is going to last about 8 minutes, though.
Yeah, I know. And one more on, what is this pedestrian head start? Because I got to tell you, it is intimidating when you travel from up here to down there, and it's a warm day in the middle of December, and the streets are just crowded with cars and taxis and people. The pedestrian head start, what is it?
Well, what they're doing is they're trying. Last year, I think the figure is something like 176 pedestrians got killed, not to mention the hundreds that were injured. I mean, it's really, you got to be very careful when you're walking on the streets in New York. And what I noticed as I've been stopping for red lights, and I do stop for red lights, it kind of came upon me slowly, and then suddenly, like, the light bulb going off on top of your head, that the lights were taking longer. And sure enough, it turns out that what they're doing now is they're making the light be red or green longer than normal because of our growing population in terms of the age. So there's definitely a difference, and that's part of the program. And I think it is a good idea, because some of our streets are very wide, and we have these traffic signs now where it counts down. 9, 8, 7, 6.
Right.
You know how many minutes you got to, seconds you have to go.
Yeah,
it's a good idea. It really is. But it definitely shows we got to look. As a matter of fact, just a little piece of factoid: we have the highest percentage of people over 65 of any place in the United States.
Wow, I didn't know that. By the way, no right on red in New York City, right?
Yeah, no, not so. That's why it's always fun to be at a red light and have somebody from your neck of the woods come behind the cab and start beeping me.
That could get you in big trouble. Peter Franklin, the best tour in New York City. You could do it possibly during the holidays, although the days are numbered. But even after the holidays, come to New York. Peter will take you to places you have no idea even existed. Go to Gabby.com, or you can contact us to get in touch with Peter. Enjoy your day, Peter Franklin.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It is Gabby.com.